Research analyst with the Foundation for Defense of Democracy, Janatan Sayeh, joins me. Good afternoon, sir. And, do you agree with me that there's sort of two issues on the table? The one the United States is focusing on, which are Iran's nuclear weapon programs, which, of course, the foreign minister denies. And then the second one is what's happening to these civilians. And we see these videos replete with hearing gunshots and everything else. So tell me, do you have any sense of what the Iranian people want?
Certainly. So talking to folks on the ground and, of course, monitoring the chants coming from inside the country, it is very clear that the repression has not stopped. More importantly, the execution of political prisoners has not stopped. Despite what Tehran may have signaled to the administration, that repression is ongoing. But I think this time around, what really sets this wave apart is the fact that it has a leader. It is not a scattered act of protest. It is increasingly becoming a revolutionary movement. That's what Iranians on the ground are calling it. And once the Crown Prince actually called on protesters to take place, we saw the biggest surge, the largest anti-regime demonstration in the history of the Islamic Republic. So it is increasingly indicative of the fact that Iranians have not only expressed that they want to move away from the Islamic Republic, but they've actually decided what they want to have as a transition following the regime collapse, or really a democratic transition.
Of course, he hasn't been elected. I don't know who's calling for this. And of course, you have the danger that if the United States goes in and beheads the government, gets rid of the Ayatollah, or there's regime change, there's nobody to immediately step in. So there's probably going to be a power grab, not just with the Crown Prince, but with other, which might, of course, contribute to chaos. But aside from those ugly topics or possibilities, tell me this, is that if the United States strikes a deal with Iran on the nuclear weapons program, one to the satisfaction of President Trump, and that can be corroborated and verified, what are the Iranian people going to think if the United States now then says, okay, we got a deal, and walks away at that point and doesn't do any sort of regime change?
That certainly risks alienating the Iranian public. And you're talking about protesters that actually responded to President Trump saying, occupy government institutions. So they went out nationwide, and of course, it would really be a betrayal to the Middle East's largest anti-Islamist movement that has been responsive to this administration's calls for protest or support. So again, that sends the wrong message, and of course, is strategically not in our interest, because even in the past, where Washington has enacted a deal with the Islamic Republic, they've continued to enrich uranium in undeclared locations with, of course, weaponization ambitions. So any deal is not going to get you regime behavior change. It's ultimately, if you want to neutralize all the threats coming from the Islamic Republic, and of course nuclear is just one of them, there's the ballistic missiles, there's the terror support, and of course is the mass killing of protesters. No deal, sanctions, or negotiations has ever changed that. The only way really, there's no way out but through from the Iranian people's perspective. And the opposition that is currently being, of course, led by the Crown Prince does have a day-after plan on how to fill that vacuum. Of course, as I mentioned, this regime being inherently anti-Islamist, the Islamists being the ones in charge, realistically, day after, it is unlikely for it to be that chaotic as we are worried. It is not going to be an Iraq or an Afghanistan situation because of where society is headed right now.
In 1979, when the Islamic Revolution occurred and the Shah of Iran, the Crown Prince's father, left, what was the level of popularity for the Crown Prince's father, the Shah of Iran?
The key point here is that the majority of Iranian population right now is right about 30.
I know, but I think that's an important question, because I think we have to be realistic as how people might feel on the ground, as much as we want certain things to happen in a certain way. But the Shah was immensely unpopular with his own people at the time, and maybe some of the people aren't alive now, because 1979 is a good bit away. It's 45 years or so away. Is that their parents and their grandparents, they've heard things, so it's not that easy as just to have the Crown Prince come in and take over.
It's evidently going to be very challenging. But again, we have to focus on what would be the main issues with a democratic transition in this context. We want to ensure, first of all, national stability. the leader who's going to be leading this transition has to ensure that has national legitimacy to prevent any form of separatist movements taking place. Again, the Crown Prince would realistically be the only viable option. The economy is in desperate need of revival. And again, the current Crown Prince, the current opposition, is the only one that is in great ties with America, being able to ensure sanctions relief. But again, once you look at what happened last month, you see people from all over the country, and it's not just major cities like Tehran. Once the Crown Prince called on protesters, we saw them wave the pre-1979 flag. We heard chants of "This is the final battle path, we will return." So I think it's very important for us not to impose on Iranians what we want to see. We have to be reactionary to what they want and who they have chosen